Time for the 49ers Rush Podcast.
The rookie Darrell Luter Jr. comes in number 45 on this year's roster countdown for the 49ers. Now, I do have to put a disclaimer on this. We did this before training camp started, and he got put on the PUP right away with the knee bone bruise where he hyperextended his knee during OTAs or minicamp or rookie minicamp at some point during that time. So, does that affect his impact this year? Of course it does. However, he is the first one out almost every day at training camp since I've been there. He looks fine. Now, I know Kyle Shanahan likes to always do some roster magic, and so I'm not quite sure if we were to re-vote today if Darrell Luter Jr. would be at 45, but he's still on the fringe of making the 53. But he's got to come off before. If he doesn't come off the PUP in the next week, then I don't think he's coming off the PUP at all, and I think they're going to stash him for the future, very similar to what they did to Kalia Davis. But I digress. There's a lot to get in with this player because he's fascinating. Shout out to Josh, the 49ers guru, for doing all this research. Darrell Luter Jr., he's had an interesting trip to get to where he is. Cornerback wears number 28, even though he hasn't put the jersey on yet. PUP players can't wear uniforms, so he's out there just in short shirts working out. 6 foot 190. But you see him next to the other corners, and even though he's not as tall, or he is as tall as almost all of them, he just looks bigger. Arm length, this is what's crazy. 32 and 7/8 inch arm length. Long arms, 81 percentile of cornerbacks. Hands, 10 and 3/8 inches. He's got 98 percentile size hands. Long arms, big hands. He's 23 years old, 4.4640, so that's great. 3 cone, 6.9, great. Vertical, 40.5, 91 percentile of all corners in the NFL. So if you plug in all of his measurables into Mock Draftable, listen to these 3 comps. Now, he didn't have a comp above 77 percentile, which means he is rare. There's not a lot like him. But the 3 people that pulled up, Sean Bunting, Kendall Fuller, and Richard Sherman. And somebody's sitting there saying, how the hell are Richard Sherman and Kendall Fuller comps for, they're completely different. Yeah, he fits the Richard Sherman arms, length, all those things. He fits Kendall Fuller's athleticism. It's a weird, there's not a lot like him. And, I always call him Pops because he's just so mature. And anytime Kyle Shanahan, John Lynch, anybody on the back end, whether it's Steve Wilks, the defensive backs coach, everybody just talks about his maturity level. He's already got a kid. He's family. He's married. He is well beyond his years. He's 23. He looks old. he responds old, and in a positive way. Went to Oak Grove High School. Graduated with sports management and recreational studies. Came out of South Alabama, the Jaguars, but he had a journey to get there. Now let's go back to his high school. He could do everything. Lettered 3 years in football, 2 in basketball, 1 in track. He's answered a lot of questions. And so there's a lot more stuff out there just with the interview process. Very religious, favorite athlete, Cam Newton, listens to NBA YoungBoy, plays video games in his spare time. His dream after football is to run his own business. He was offered by a handful of schools after his JUCO placement, Houston, Purdue, Rutgers, Southern Miss, Coastal Carolina, but he chose South Alabama. If you just look at his tape, golly, teams were petrified of this guy. They played against UCLA. They didn't throw the ball his way one time. They didn't throw the ball. They don't test him. I watch another game of him, and we have these up on Patreon if you want to go check them out. A team will look his way 2 to 3 times tops per game. Like, he was that type of island cornerback at that level to where teams just stayed the hell away. They were just literally terrified of that guy and just not worth it. Half of the field was gone because of what he was able to do. Now, he was drafted in the 5th round, pick 20. And again, can this be the next 5th round Jim? That the Niners have just hit home runs on competitively, continuously. College, 91 tackles, 2.5 tackle for losses, 5 interceptions, 1 forced fumble, 18 pass breakups. Listen to these PFF scores. He had 780 defensive snaps last year in college. 274 against the run, 494 coverage. 70 Overall grade. Okay, that's all right. 73.6 run grade. Okay, that's all right. 83.1 tackling. That's beyond great. That's one of the highest I've ever seen for a defensive back. 70.4 coverage, that's good. Plus, he has 102 special team snaps. So, and I think he's going to have to play special teams. Now, if you look at the corner depth chart, how is this guy going to make the roster this year? Yeah. You're competing with Ambry Thomas. You're competing with Deshaun Jameson, who has just been a camp highlight reel. That dude's played incredible. So there's a lot there. And I do think that the rise of Deshaun Jameson will make it even harder for the 49ers to take Darrell Luter Jr. off the PUP. Doesn't mean they can't, but it's an easy way to keep both. Because if you activate Darrell Luter Jr., then you're probably not going to keep him and Deshaun Jameson. This would allow the Niners to have the potential to keep both long term. We'll have to see how that plays out, but I'm excited to see him. I want him off the PUP just for selfish reasons. I love what he brings to the game, and his maturity, his physicality translates immediately. But I think the 49ers might keep him on there and just use him as a break glass in case of emergency if somebody gets injured and they need better depth, just like they did with Clea Davis last year. So excited to see what Pops can do, but part of me just says, you know what? We're going to be waiting a little while, but we'll see. Anyway, we'll keep counting him down here, and we'll see what Darrell Luter Jr. can do if he gets the opportunity.